Hello, ESL teachers. This is Speak Up English Talk Resources, and I am a store at the Teachers Pay Teachers website. And my store specializes in creating conversation lessons for kids, adults, and also high school students. So this one particular lesson that I'm going to present to you today is a conversation lesson on the topic of a decline in bookstores worldwide, which is a global trend. And so the way my lessons are structured is that it comes in three parts. The first part, it teaches the students some key vocabulary. So this is for them to get prepared to read a short article in part two of my lesson. So some key vocabulary in this particular conversation lesson includes something like the word decline. What does the word decline mean? And here's a short definition for it. And then there's a sentence, a sample sentence, and it shows the student how to use this word in a sentence. And also, all my lessons come with beautiful graphics because a picture tells 1,000 words. And then next, I have another one, for example, digital version. What does that mean, right? So here is an ebook, right? And then, a sample sentence for the student to practice. And then, for example, another one, business model. What does that mean, right? And then after teaching the key vocabulary, and usually I give like 6 or 7 vocabulary for each lesson. And then comes part two, which is for the student to read an article. Now, the article is pretty short and it's broken down into a few pages, and each page or each slide has like 2 or 3 sentences so that it's easy on the eye, especially you're teaching this online to the student. And also it helps the student to stay focused. And again, all the slides come with like graphics, beautiful visuals, so it helps the student to absorb the material better. They get a better comprehension for the material. So right off the bat, the lesson explains that right now the global trend is that there's a decline in the number of bookstores, and it's because due to the technology and shopping habits and reading habits. And it goes on to explain now, that people, they use cell phones, tablets, or even ebooks, to do their reading. And as the student's reading, you can always ask questions and check for their comprehension level. And you can ask questions. You can, share your experiences and, just start talking, right? You can ask them, like, when was the last time you visited a bookstore? And did you actually buy anything from there? Or do you prefer like reading, right, from your smartphone or from an ebook, etc.? And then further on, just another sample of my article. It talks about how bookstores these days they need to survive. So what they do is instead of just doing the traditional selling of books, they organize lots of different activities, and they also sell like gifts, right? And they sell like stationery, they sell home decor and toys, right? And they even have like celebrities to go in there to do like signing events. They also provide like cafes, right? Or very comfortable seating area so that you feel like you're at home, you feel relaxed when you actually go into the bookstore. So all these things you can discuss, right, with your student. And I have one student that lives in China, and we talk about what it's like to visit a bookstore, right? And I share with her that I because I live in Canada before, like about 20 years ago, there used to be some big bookstores around. And when I was a little girl, going to school, we have this place called largest, the world's biggest bookstore, and I used to go in there to buy my textbooks, buy novels, buy storybooks, whatever. But then that store no longer exists, right? So I can talk to her and talk to her about my experience and get her to share hers, right? After the article is done, then then we come to part three of the lesson, which is the key part of the whole lesson, is a discussion activity. Now, this is where things can get interesting, and this is where you try to get the student to talk as much as as much as they can, right? So the lesson usually I provide like 7 to 9 questions. They're all done for you, so it saves you the teacher the time to come up with your own. So you can just follow these questions, and you can ask them for their opinion, for their experiences, and also to keep in mind, right? Try to keep this like a two-way thing. So don't just ask a question and then, get them to answer, and then, oh, question two, have them answer, and question three, have them answer. Make it interesting and make it fun. Share your experience and get them to talk about their experience. Talk about your preferences, right, for your reading habit, etc. Right? This is a sample question, right? Did you visit bookstores more often when you were younger? And I already you give an example of how I shared my experience, right, with my student. And then here, another one, do you prefer reading at home, in a library, or in a cafe, right? One of my students told me it really depends, right? If she's studying and she's reading a textbook, then she prefers to stay at home, in her bedroom where it's somewhere quiet. But if she's just, reading a novel or a magazine, then she would go to a cafe and enjoy the music and, and get some food, because it helps her to relax, right? And then another sample question is, do you prefer physical books or digital books? And some students tell me they actually prefer the digital versions because the physical ones are too heavy to carry around. And, with the digital books, they can just throw it in their bags and they just like, take them anywhere they want, right? So talk about these things. And also pay attention to the way they speak, right? Because they are ESL students, so they tend to make grammar mistakes, and I try not to overcorrect them. So what I usually do is just wait for them to finish what they have to say, or wait for them to finish at least like 5 or 6 sentences, and then I give them a gentle reminder, right? And just correct them on their pronunciation, on their grammar, or sometimes they have problem forming like a longer complex sentence. And when they do that, when they have problems with that, then I help them, right? And I also teach them some idioms, or some the words that we like, or phrasal verbs, right? Phrasal verbs that we use as native speakers. So those are really appreciated, by these by the ESL students, because they want to learn to talk like natives, right? They don't want to talk like, the kind of languages that are taught by textbooks. So yeah, anyhow, if you like, you can visit my store at the Teachers Pay Teachers website, and I do offer individual lessons, and also they come in bundles and packages. And my link is in the bio. All right, bye.